Welcome to Let's Talk with Bree. I am your host, BreeAnn Hammond, and I am so excited to have Senior Vice President and Chief Enterprise Responsibility Officer for Fifth Third Bank, Mrs. Byna Elliott, on the show with me today. Thank you for joining us. Now, what I want to discuss is the disruption that we're experiencing with the COVID-19 virus. This has caused so many businesses to temporarily shut down and or greatly limit operations. Employers and employees are wondering how are they going to provide for their families. So let's talk about this. The stimulus packages that have been discussed and circulating around in the media. We haven't heard any definite timeline as to when those stimulus packages will be released. Tell us how Fifth Third Bank has stepped up to get involved with relieving some of those financial struggles in the community.
So right off the bat, Bree, I really want to say to everybody, you're not alone, because that's really important, because these challenges and struggles are experienced by everybody. And COVID does not discriminate by race, age, or sex, or income, or livelihood of where you live at and your zip code. And so all of us are experiencing these challenges. So I'm really proud of the work that Fifth Third's done over the last few weeks to help everybody sort of navigate these unknown waters and new territories. So the first thing is that we did as an organization is we immediately got out to our consumer customers, those who have a banking relationship with us. That's a personal relationship, whether it's your credit card, your mortgage, or your bank account with us. We reached out to you. We reached out to more than 1 million customers that we have and said, how can we help you? And that you have options. And so I'm really proud of that proactive approach we took. Secondly, we announced that $8.75 million, almost $9 million in emergency resources to organizations that help communities and individuals who might be at risk during this time. So we've been fast and furious over the last few weeks, cutting checks to those organizations who will then pass those resources on and be able to service their clients that are struggling.
Okay, outstanding. That is truly amazing. Almost $9 million. That's definitely much needed at a time like this. And when you were given the responsibility of creating a strategy for distributing that $8.75 million donation fund, did any of your own personal experiences serve as motivation in strategizing?
It certainly did. And also, I would say, the experiences of my friends and families and neighbors also helped filter through and helped form the program that we wanted to deliver to our community. So we did a lot of listening. We reached out to numerous organizations that we work with every day that service the community. They're in the heart of these communities and have strong client bases that have needs, and ask them what could we provide to support them during this. But also really just hearing from my personal friends and family around work stoppages or not being able not being an essential worker, and some who are essential workers, and what are they facing and what are the challenges. Being an essential worker today sounds good because you're working every day, but it has challenges. If you have little ones at home, you have to find a daycare center that is supporting essential workers, and it might not be your normal daycare center. So when we think about all the things that we're faced with day to day, personally and professionally, friends and family, and our customers and communities, we really try to listen, to understand, and to provide the resources in meaningful and tangible ways to make a difference to consumers.
That is so true. I am thinking about my own family members and friends that are in need. We're all looking for ways to cope with this global crisis. So I can imagine how your experiences have also contributed to this process and trying to create relief for those in need. Now, in general, this is typically what you do. I mean, I've read some of your past interviews, and you truly have a passion for serving underprivileged communities. However, some people are leery of banks and view them as these large, unapproachable corporations. I personally have been taught to look for help from credit unions instead of banks. So, how do you counteract that kind of thinking? And did it impact the decision in how you would respond to COVID-19?
I'll take that in really two ways, Bree. First and foremost, for me, for Byna Elliott, I honor the work I do and I consider it my assignment. That I'm really honoring the gifts and talents that I have. And for me, I have a gift of help. So everything I do is formed and done to help others. And then I tell my team every day, if you're focused on paperwork and processes versus people and making a difference, you're probably in the wrong field in my group. So this is what I do. I consider it a blessing and an honor to be able to do it every day. And I view it as my assignment to make sure that the activities of an organization are tangible and real in communities. And that means that I do this work not because of my title or not because of who I work for organization-wise, but because I believe that by connecting the community honestly and authentically with the resources, that we can be better. That communities cannot be vibrant or thrive without the resources of large organizations and institutions. And so that's important to me. Secondly, I want to acknowledge that the last time we had a really challenging time, the banks might not have been your friend. That was not our intentions this time. Two things, Fifth Third Bank and a lot of my bank peers and partners industry-wide are extremely financially strong and viable, and we've had strong record years of earnings and opportunities to grow and strengthen our balance sheet. So in this instance, we want to be really clear that we're not looking for a handout, so we don't need to chart 2.0 or 3.0, and that this time we believe that this is a challenge that we are geared for and able to support our communities and not struggle with them, but be part of the solution. So we want to be really honest and say, we know we didn't get it right the first time. In 2008, 2009, we did not get it right. This time around, you can count on us to be thoughtful, to learn our lessons from the last time, to be proactive in our approach, and really trying to make sure that we are your partner, your trusted advisor, and a solid person, solid organization you can depend on as you go through these challenges this time.
I really commend you for that approach and the honesty and transparency. That's really what people want, and it helps to bridge that gap for those who might feel, some discomfort or are a little apprehensive about moving forward with seeking help. So I appreciate the honesty, and I know viewers will as well. Now, do you think that overall the donation, in addition to the transparency that you're sharing now in how you all are rectifying the wrongs of the past, do you think that the actual donation will truly build more confidence in banks and build more rapport overall?
I think it takes time, right? So we've been trying to recover and rebuild our relationship and reestablish the banks and our industry as a trusted advisor. I think the work that we do every day to not only be there for our customers, but to provide meaningful advice to them will pay off over time. The fact that we committed $9 million to helping communities was because we live in these communities. We are the communities that we're talking about serving. So we're not a big building and an ivory tower. You're our neighbors. We go to church with you. You're our family members. We hear your stories. We understand your plight because we live it every day with our friends and families. And so it is important for us to make sure that these resources are real, that they address the issues of communities, and that we hear from you around what do we need to do. And so we're not doing it in a vacuum. We're really reaching out to organizations that we know are actually serving communities, that are actually on the ground, that are in these communities every day making a difference, asking how can we help? What can Fifth Third resources be used to help you further the work that you're doing? We don't presume that we know how to do it all, but we know there are community partners that are engaged that we need to actively work with and support and fund their operations and fund their investments and their charitable activities so they can make the difference.
To your point about being in the community, going to churches, going to the same grocery stores, actively being involved and being your customer's neighbor. I understand that Fifth Third Bank is not actually in every state. So what communities, what parts of the country can actually anticipate having access to these funds? What states, what areas are we referring to?
So all of Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and West Virginia. I think I got them all. But if you think about Fifth Third and its footprint, if you think about taking that family trip from up north from Michigan or Illinois or Indiana down south to Florida, that's where you can find Fifth Third offices down that I-75 corridor. We are operating in 10 states and 14 markets. So we are really in the heart of communities, and we're really being hit the hardest. So you think about, we're not on the East or West Coast, but if you think about Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, the challenges that families are facing in those areas, that's exactly where Fifth Third is at. We're funded the ones in our market, but we also have partners like a JP Morgan that are across the country that are also in these same programs that are also helping to assist. So I would say no matter where you're at, your bank is trying to be part of the solution.
To know that Fifth Third Bank, along with your other peers, they're there to help all of us. We're all trying to figure this out. That is extremely useful information. Now, what will the actual process look like? How can people apply for these funds? Will this process be completely online due to social distancing, or even thinking about, layoffs and whatnot? Some people might not even be able to afford internet access right now because of the pandemic. How can people apply? Can they possibly mail in their applications? What are we looking at?
So the funds that we created through the pool are available to not-for-profit organizations and organizations that are serving the community. They're not available to the individual consumer. So that's important, is that if you think about who do you seek help with, if you're in a United Way community and you call 211, we are supporting United Ways. If you think about a food pantry where you're having to go seek and get additional food supplies that you can't afford to pay for in a grocery store, we are providing funding to those food pantries and your local food banks. So almost the $9 million that we created a pool of funding for are going to not-for-profit organizations that you work with every day in your communities. So those not-for-profit organizations are emailing us with requests, sending us a list of their priorities, and we're funding the $9 million through those organizations. There is definitely direct benefit and impact to consumers and small businesses through the Government CARES Act that they just passed almost a week and a half ago now. So that CARES Act resources are available now, and to get access to those funds, if you're a small business owner, you have to work with your local bank to actually get the modifications around your mortgage or your credit cards, or to get on your automotive. That is available through your financial institutions. So while we are partnering with not-for-profit organizations, we're also the partner with the federal government, local and state governments around their programs that are direct to consumers. So I would say start with your bank. We might not provide direct capital or grant to you as a consumer directly, but we are granting to those local not-for-profits, but we are able to help you understand where the resources are coming from, or to provide you direct support for your finance.
Okay, that is a great distinction to know and to figure out the process, how to access it, where to go to get the help. Is there a projected time frame as to when those funds will be distributed? Have they already started getting distributed to the nonprofit organizations? What is that?
Yeah, so we started about 2 weeks ago. And so today is actually the third submission. So we submitted programs for grant funding for the last 3 weeks since we announced it. We announced the program on a Friday. We started taking applications on that Monday. And we did something really unique, is we changed our process from the 3 months it would take for our foundation to donate. And we really contracted that down to almost 2 weeks. So from 3 months to 2 weeks, we considered this a real emergency. So we changed our process to make sure that those not-for-profit partners could get access to those resources immediately. So I'm proud to say that first 3 weeks, we've given out more than $4 million of that $9 million pool of funds to area organizations across our footprint that are serving communities every day, whether it's Meals on Wheels, Kids Connecting to Meals, the Small Business Association through the Small Business Development Center. All these myriad of organizations that you see and hear about every day that are making a difference in your community are accessing our resources as we speak.
Now, does Fifth Third Bank foresee a particular business model facing an unprecedented interruption? How will these funds help them? Is there a particular model that's going to hit or get the biggest hit?
Yeah, I wish I could say, oh, look, there are a couple industries that are impacted, but since it started, and it changes every day, Bree, we're seeing all industries impacted and nobody's really safe, right? But initially we thought it would impact tourism. The ability to go to other countries or to travel through using a cruise ship or airline would be the most impacted, and they are certainly hurt substantially, whether you're, hotels and all those travel and tourism industry organizations are really being impacted. But now when you think about all the shelters in place, this is impacting Main Street as well as Wall Street. There is no respect of any business that is not impacted by COVID. Some might be doing well and able to deliver their resources, but maybe even the payables though might be slow, right? Because while they are delivering great services are still essential, the payments that they were expecting from their clients could be slowed up because there's a work shortage, work stoppage, and or a slowing of resources. So unfortunately, this time around, nobody's immune, nobody's sort of insulated, but we're hopeful that the solutions that both the banks are creating, other corporate leaders, as well as the government will help reduce the impact, soften the blow, and help us recover that much quicker.
And on one hand, it's definitely disappointing. I mean, it's unfortunate news, it's an unfortunate time, but there's also comfort in the fact that we are all going through this together. So it's nice to know that there isn't one area, one business that's taking the hardest hit, or that we could even predict that will be the case down the road. It's just nice to know that we're all in this together, and that's why we're having this conversation to figure out how can we get through this pandemic. Do you think Fifth Third Bank will possibly consider donating more funds in the event this pandemic continues?
So first of all, Bree, you're absolutely right. And I just want to tell everybody publicly, I'm getting an F for being a homeschooler. Like my son, who's a high school student, we're struggling. I'm like, what does Khan Academy say? Because I can't help you with that math. I can't help you with the reading. So one, I want to, if you know a teacher, send them an email and say, thank you. I didn't know my kid was so difficult. I apologize for having an attitude when you call me about my son or daughter, because this is some heavy lifting that I am not ill. I can do a lot of things. Teaching and being a homeschool teacher is not what I do, right? And I will say this though, is that as we see the needs, just like we stepped up immediately to put this fund together of close to $9 million to help communities, we're not done. And we framed our plan around this, around emergency relief, about recovery and resilience. So how do we help in the emergency, but also think about long-term how we help our communities recover from this, and really do it in a way that's sustainable and long-term, and lets people kind of come back as it grows and be more resilient as a result of this, that we learn from this, that the next time this happens, we're knocking on some real wood that this doesn't happen again, but the next time we won't be so shaken. And so that requires us to commit to the resources we just did, which is close to $9 million, and help over 50,000 customers in the first week reorientate themselves around how they're going to pay their bills, and then looking at what's next and looking long-term in the future, short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So I am confident that as we see the uncovering of more needs, that we will step up to the plate.
Well, I just thank you so much for the work that you're doing. I thank you for just your spirit. You're pleasant, you're confident, And I believe that a lot of people will benefit greatly from your impact and your desire to affect change in the community. So I just thank you for joining me today. Fifth Third Bank, kudos to you for stepping up and playing a part in helping underserved communities that are affected by this global crisis. You stay safe, Miss Elliott, and keep up the great work, okay?
Same to you, Bree. Loved, enjoy talking to you, and really appreciate you taking the time to share with your community things that they can do to be okay during this time.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine. You take care.